Okay. All right. So, hello everyone, and nice to see. And I'm saying that some people are continuing to come in, and that's fine. And it's good to see everyone that's here. My name is Shirley Werner, and I'm the head of the Center for Disability Studies. We're used to having all these Zoom talks, but Anat and Nili are a lot more used to than me in providing the introductions and how to do it nicely. So you can see the people here, Anat and Nili, who are from our Center for Disability Studies, Elia, who is our coordinator in the Center for Disability Studies. The Center for Disability Studies is a collaboration between the School of Social Work at Hebrew University and JDC Israel. And within this center, we are doing a lot of activities that are related to social perspectives of disability in a lot of different angles. And one of the angles that we took upon us, actually, I think it's an angle that follows us in this entire school year, is the prisma and perspective that has to do with the AI. So in the previous semester, we actually had a course for our second degree students that was also open to free listeners, and the entire course focused on the topic of AI in the disability fields, and we looked at it from different perspectives and a lot of different issues that we spoke about within this course. And the issue of AI continues with us into this continuation of the school year, because we put in a proposal, and myself and Marianne, that is also here, and Oren Assman from Responsible AI, and Nili, who is sitting here, and Mimi Eisenstadt, who is not here. We put in a proposal to have a Minerva workshop that focuses on AI. So this Minerva workshop is going to take place on the 11th and 12th of March upcoming. And all of your who are dealing specifically in these topics are welcome to join us in the workshop. It's quite a small workshop because we do want to have a lot of time for discussions, etc. But this was something that was supposed to happen, I think, 2 or maybe even 3 years back, that we got this money from Minerva. And then some of you might know, of course, or all of you, war, etc., etc., etc. So things were pushed back a couple of times. And in pushing back the things, of course, naturally, also the people that will be joining our workshop, specifically people from abroad, have changed a couple of times. So we decided to have 2 days that we can have pre-conference talks in which we can bring some of the speakers that are not able to come physically to the workshop in Israel. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to bring these talks that I think are interesting and important, and to bring them via Zoom. So this is what we're doing in this specific day. And we also have another day on the 5th of March where some of additional folks that were not able to come face to face will be presenting. So you can also know that on the 5th of March, we'll have an additional day that's a pre-conference sort of talk. The talk today is supposed to be focusing on disability, stigma, and AI. And we were supposed to have 4 speakers on the talk today, but unfortunately one of the speakers fell ill, and the second one of the speakers, her husband needs to go into surgery, so they're on their way there. So I'm sorry in advance of the fact that we are going to have 2 of the originally planned 4 speakers, but I'm sure it will be good talks and that we will enjoy having these talks. So the first speaker that's going to speak is Yvonne Wesley. I probably not pronouncing the last name correctly. Sorry. And Yvonne is going to be speaking to us about different facets of passing and AI. Yvonne is from the Institute of Social Work and Social Welfare at the University of Kassel. She was doing her PhD with Marianne and the original Minerva connection with Marianne. So this is how we got to know Ivan, and I think the topics that she's dealing with are very, very interesting and important. And you will also see afterwards, after Ivan's talk, Nili will talk, and I think you will see that many of the things tie quite well together, and they're talking the similar language. So you can see how the things tie together. I do want to say that if you need subtitles in English, you can press down below on your toolbar the CC options, and it will give you the automatic Zoom transcription into English. What we'll do is we'll have the two talks. We'll have Ivan, afterwards I'll introduce Nili, and we'll have Nili's talk, and then we'll try to have an overall discussion. During the discussion, you can use the Zoom chat box if you want to put any questions throughout. Feel free to use this, and we'll get to this afterwards. And during the question time afterwards, if someone feels more comfortable asking in Hebrew, I assume in German as well, if you feel more comfortable in either of the languages, we'll translate the questions. And I'm passing it over to you, Ivan.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let me start by sharing my slides. Hey. My name is Yvonne Vichuli, and I'll be talking on different facets of parsing and AI, as you have already mentioned, Shirley. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And maybe like a short explanation in front. I mean, I've been thinking about parsing in the course of my PhD work a lot, and I think I'm not so how do you say? I'm not so keen on AI. I don't use AI that much myself, like my German colleagues know. Why do I participate here? I mean, I felt like in the disability field, we are still looking for the questions to ask regarding AI and use of AI. So I felt I wanted to contribute from my line of thinking, what maybe also plays a role in AI. But I'd be very interested to hear what you think. And technology-wise, I'm sure a lot of people in this room are more in this virtual room are more knowledgeable than me. By the way, we have a construction site going on. I hope you don't hear it. If you do, maybe let me know. I can ask them to. We'll see. I'm at university. It's been going on for the last few months. So what do I want to do today? I want to introduce you to different facets of parsing. I'm sure many of you have heard the term parsing. But there's a few different ways that I think make sense to distinguish from each other. And then I will bring a few application scenarios of parsing strategies when interacting with AI, and discuss what this means. So let me just dive right in. So the term parsing describes negotiations of one's public impression after Irving Goffman. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this term. But now, similar to human interactions, if we talk of artificial intelligence, it can be expected that disabled people will also have to apply such impression management strategies when interacting with AI. That is because of the way, for instance, large language models are programmed. They are found to reproduce human bias, despite maybe early hopes that they are bias-free. That I think we know quite well that this is not the case because of the way they are trained. And also, like, because the way they come into place, it's not like we know beforehand how they will interact exactly. So that some authors even call AI a real life experiment, because we kind of discover on the go exactly how those like, let's say, large language models react when they are asked certain questions. So to find out how they operate in a very specific manner, this is only possible through observation afterwards. I mean, if all the like company secrets were open, that would be different, but this is not the case. So in the following, I will first present three different facets of parsing in more detail and elaborate respective application scenarios in interaction with AI. In these three strategies, disabled people deal differently with the visibility or perceptibility of their disability status. This is why I used a pictogram here for visibility, invisibility. I think that's the big issue. So while passing as normal and also the strategy of passing as supercrip or covering after Goffman, I will introduce all of them in a bit. Both of them go back to Erving Goffman, and I argue that it makes sense to also talk about passing as disabled, which was introduced by the disability studies theorist Tobin Siebers, because they make sense to consider together, in my view. Let's start with the first strategy, passing as normal, quote unquote, in Goffman's words, which I narrowed down in this case as passing as able-body-minded. Also, the term passing as normal, as you might know, has been heard as offensive, rightfully so. Passing as able-body-minded, when in the German translation, no, let me mention the first things first. In this strategy, one's own disability status is hidden or simply not mentioned. In the German translation of Stigma, passing is understood as deception, Täuschen. That's how it's literally, like the chapter passing is translated as Täuschen. Which a term that carries the implicit accusation that it is immoral not to disclose one's disability status or not always to disclose it. Disabled activists and researchers themselves occasionally describe conflicts of loyalty when they do not openly show or always openly show themselves as part of their community. Furthermore, passing is frowned upon as an exhaustive strategy or exhausting strategy, especially in the long term, because it makes the use of assistive devices and other adaptations impossible. Structurally, passing as normal relies on an assumption of able-body-mindedness. Since most impairments contain at least some invisible aspects, this basic sociocultural assumption is central here. When disabled people pass as able-body-minded, they further maintain rather than create access to privileges that are reserved for people perceived as able-body-minded. So that is passing as able-body-minded in a nutshell. And somehow, I think most of you have come across this concept, maybe not in this detail, but have heard about it. So what does this mean in the context of AI now? First of all, I would say, or like there are a few authors who, in a different field, namely critique of racism, who criticize discursive effects. The assumption of able-body-mindedness also holds true for AI, which creates these discursive effects. In their essay, The Whiteness of AI, Cave and Lee Hall problematized that intelligent machines are implicitly designed and imagined as white. And I brought along a photo from like a Google search. And this is the first anthropomorphic picture that came up in my picture search. So I just typed in an AI, and I looked for the first picture that looked like a human. And yeah, I would say that this picture shows blue eyes, and it also shows the physique that can be read as white. So that is what those authors mean, Cave and Dikal, that we think of AI as like white technology, as of those machines as being white. They are given racialized attributes that enable their identification based on human racist categories. So they can be read as either white or non-white. And now, from the critical perspective of disability studies, it can be added here that intelligent machines are also designed and imagined as able-body-minded. Yeah, at least me, I haven't really seen any like picture representation of AI as disabled. I'd be interested to hear if you know differently, if you've come across that. And secondly, passing as able-body-minded might become necessary in interaction with artificial intelligence. And my example here is care robotics, nursing robotics, namely, they establish new expectations of quote-unquote normal behavior, which, like from my perspective, I'm interested in emotions. And sociology of emotions can be described as new feeling rules for the respective care recipients. I've included a picture of a robot called Pepper that a few authors write on, Arnelit et al. And this robot is similar to other nursing robots. It's supposed to like interact with elderly people in long-term care. To like create a positive experience for them, so to say. And the recipients of care work are expected to adhere to specific expectations regarding their feelings. For example, these specific robots, the Pepper model, is designed to make people in care smile, and it measures facial expressions of smiles to do so. The expectation of smiling or being able to smile despite, for instance, serious illness in a hospital setting can have an exclusionary effect. Maybe not everyone is able in general to smile to the robot's expectations. And also, yeah, maybe the person has other problems in the moment and doesn't feel like smiling. This is a very specific example, but more generally, large language models have been found to mimic service actor interactions, which set new standards for human emotional expression. For instance, like a tone of superficial friendliness that has been found for ChatGPT to be true, like and people describe how they feel inclined to also be like superficially friendly to ChatGPT in their interactions. And yeah, this might create the necessity to pass as able-body-minded, or especially as able-minded in this latter case, and might create conflict or new barriers if people cannot do that or don't want to. Let's move on to the second, passing as disabled. I think the term masquerade is better known, more common. It's a concept introduced by Tobin Siebers, disability studies theorist. And he described the quasi-opposite approach to passing as able-body-minded, which he terms masquerade, but also in single quote, like at single points, also terms as passing as disabled, which describes it well also. Here, disabled people put their disability status on display, for example, by exaggerating it. Like one example from his book is a limp that is exaggerated. Or also using assistive devices that are not really needed in the specific situation to indicate disability status. And people with disabilities do that in order to legitimately claim barrier-free access or an exemption from non-disabled performance standards. Disclosing one's disability status is often understood as a political act, sometimes also described as coming out, which makes passing as normal obsolete. However, as able-body-mindedness is usually assumed until other information is shared, it's a constantly recurring act and maybe not quite as playful in every situation or quite as liberating and connected to disability pride. Sometimes it's also just a necessity. If accommodations are needed, masquerade is compulsory in order to avoid hostility and other stressful interactions. Passing as disabled can also fail, as described by Tobin Siebers, regarding disabled parking, which is like a classic example. Namely, disabled people frequently describe to face hostile reactions when they are not believed to have a disability status that warrants using a parking spot reserved for disabled people. Structurally, the need to pass as disabled arises from a neoliberal blame culture, and like passing as able-body-minded is based on the assumption of able-body-mindedness. So what does this mean for AI now? I have another application scenario, which I didn't really have a good picture to fill in with. I think maybe the scenario that concerns me most is automated decision making. For instance, I mean, I don't know anywhere where this is the case, but we have digitalization also in bureaucracy and social states. And I don't think it's very far-fetched to think of a scenario where people are applying for disability-specific benefits in the future through AI. And it might become necessary to convince AI of one's disability status, even if one doesn't look at according to human bias, which AI might also, through training, internalize. So to say that's very anthropomorphic. And the problem is that it might become necessary to pass as disabled, but also the diffused responsibility that goes with AI-based decisions that we already know from big data, where maybe there's no human you can complain to directly, but maybe there have to be measures in place how to deal with that responsibility if there are biased decisions.
Yvonne, you have 5 minutes.
Yep. As another application scenario are AI-generated images where the representation of disabled people has been found lacking. So Karen Soldatic and her team investigated how AI-generated media represent the lived realities of disabled people with a migrant background. So that's intersectional, of course, as a question. And they found that their study participants have to specify their attributes excessively in order to feel represented by AI-generated images. For instance, I'm reading out what the person, I have taken the picture from their study, from their paper, and the person behind that picture had to put all of the following characteristics to feel represented. She wrote or the prompt was a character portrait of a chubby, small, Southeast Asian, gender-neutral person, 50-year-old with short black hair, tanned skin, middle part hairstyle, wearing a hoodie on video call on her laptop. So of course that also has implications in terms of data safety, I would say. Let's get to the last aspect, supercrips, or what you could call passing as extraordinary able despite quote-unquote disability. This third impression management strategy was termed covering by Goffman. Here, a person's stigmatized attribute, for instance, disability in this case, is shown openly or demonstratively, but the subject works hard to minimize its significance for example, through exceptional achievements. In disability studies, the provocative term supergroup is commonly used here to describe, for instance, Paralympic athletes are like the prime example, or also idealized blind musicians. I put a picture here of Stevie Wonder, who falls, I think, in that drawer. When individual disabled people embody the figure of the supergroup, they establish unrealistic expectations of the whole collective, because they are perceived as exceptions to otherwise accurate stereotypes about disabled people. Disability as a negatively perceived difference is perpetuated. If the efforts required to embody a supergroup cannot be maintained in the long run, disabled people are blamed for this in a blame culture. So the recognition as a supergroup can be withdrawn. And there are a few examples where this happens very suddenly. Efforts to cover are demanded by an able-body-minded audience who want to be inspired also. So this fulfills like a public need or a public demand. So what does this mean now, a figure of the supergroup or the strategy of covering for AI? I have one application scenario here. Such an alleged glorification, as the supergroup suggests, can be found when people on the autistic spectrum serve as pioneers for the use of emotional AI, more specifically a facial recognition software called Aftex, where there's a paper by these authors. I think the name is Hungarian, spelled Nagy or something, not so sure. Maybe also spelled differently, pronounced differently, who wrote on people on the autistic spectrum who serve as a charismatic use case for emotion recognition tools. And I brought along a screenshot of this program Aftex, who characterizes facial expressions. This software was promoted by the inventor as an emotional hearing aid, quote unquote, for people on the autistic spectrum, and was also tested on people on the autistic spectrum as a charismatic use case, as they say. We can observe some sort of cyborgification and also a narrative of inspiration, while disability is perpetuated as a negatively perceived difference in need of fixing with this program. So let me come to discussion questions now, or like a small conclusion. The need to pass is either able-body-minded, disabled, or supergroup in interaction with AI, in my opinion, can create new barriers for disabled people. And what I presented are my first thoughts. I'm not like the AI crack. Maybe you know different examples, but I think it's something that should be kept in mind. And two aspects that come to mind that become very important if we think of such new barriers is a call to unblack box AI. So those programs who are highly profit generating and where there's a black box because we don't know how they are designed and what exactly happens. If this changes, I think there's more possibilities that the effects are not quite as grave in terms of new barriers. And also it calls for like a bit the other direction of like auditing processes of AI applications afterwards. Like if we have the black box, that there should be measures in place to like tackle bias and tackle those new barriers if they are like tested, and this should also include disabled people. Yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you so much. Resources.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you. I already see that there are questions in the chat, and
Oh, I haven't seen that.
no, that's fine. We'll get to them afterwards in the general discussion.
Right.
You can look at them if you wish, but we'll get to them afterwards in the general discussion, and you can again, anyone that's here, feel free to add questions there. So thank you, Ivan. We're moving on to Nili, who is from our Center for Disability Studies at the Hebrew University. And Nili is going to talk to us about enhancement and the exploitation of disability. So the floor is yours, Nili.
Thank you, Shirley. So first of all, I'm quite excited. I'm sorry if my English will not be so fluent as I wish. And thank you for also, Yvonne. I think that our work are very nicely connected. And I'm going to imply also some of the term that you are using in your work. So I want to start with an example of a technology called telepathy. It's of the creation of Neuralink. That was it's a company founded by Elon Musk, and I want to show you two different videos here. I'm sorry, I didn't share it to videos, so I'm stopping and doing it again. Okay. So I want to show you two short videos of this telepathy technology. One of them is an experiment on an ape that was provided a chip that was inserted into his brain. And later we'll see a different video of a disabled person that is using the same technology after this experiment on animals. So, how I'm moving here? Okay, stop sharing again, sorry.
Press Nili the link itself.
Yes, I want to show you the links. It's already open, but never mind.
We can see now yes.
Hey, I'm Nolan. 7 years ago,
Sorry, I wanted to do the second one first. So as I said, I'm excited. Okay, so this is the first.
This is Pager. He's a 9-year-old macaque who had a Neuralink placed in each side of his brain about 6 weeks ago. If you look carefully, you can see that the fur on his head hasn't quite fully grown back yet. He's learnt to interact with a computer for a tasty banana smoothie delivered through a straw. We can interact with the Neuralinks simply by pairing them to an iPhone, just as you might pair your phone to a Bluetooth speaker. The links record from more than 2,000 electrodes implanted in the regions of Pager's motor cortex that coordinate hand and arm movements. Neurons in this region modulate their activity with intended hand movement. For example, some might become more active when he moves his hand up, and others when he moves it to the right. By recording from many neurons and feeding their activity into a decoder algorithm, we are able to predict Pager's intended hand movements in real time. First, we calibrate the decoder by recording neural activity as Pager uses the joystick to move a cursor to targets presented on the screen. As he's playing this game, we're wirelessly streaming, in real time, the firing rates from thousands of neurons to a computer. Using these data, we calibrate the decoder by mathematically modeling the relationship between patterns of neural activity and the different joystick movements they produce. After only a few minutes of calibration, we can use the output from the decoder to move the cursor instead of the joystick. Pager still moves the joystick out of habit, but as you can see, it's unplugged. He's controlling the cursor entirely with decoded neural activity. Our goal is to enable a person with paralysis to use a computer or phone with their brain activity alone. Because they wouldn't be able to move a joystick, They would calibrate the decoder by imagining hand movements to targets. One of the things the Neuralinks allow Pager to do is to play his favorite video game, Pong.
Okay, I will stop here
Before you
and
put
move to,
on the second one, can you move
yes,
the black box that you have in the share options, the zoom, the zoom box
yes,
move it to different locations because it's blocking some of the screen.
wait a second. It's the CC. Let's see
Yes.
that now it will work better. Okay.
Hey, I'm Nolan. 7 years ago, I dislocated my C4C5 while swimming in a lake. There were a lot of things to adjust to. Some things I would have never guessed would be difficult became very difficult.
It's Nolan's biggest dream right now to become independent. I hope that this study not only helps him to do that, but it also helps technology to advance in quadriplegics.
I'm really excited to be a part of this Neuralink project. I want to help out people down the road as much as I can. I mean, when I first actually moved the cursor with my mind, it blew my mind for like a whole day. And to be helping, to be able to be useful in some way, it completely changed how I live.
Okay. So sorry for the technological problems. I actually am a big believer of problems with technology, so maybe it's a good example what we experience now. Now I'm moving again to the slide. Sorry. Okay, we'll see if now I'm doing it. Okay. So this is the example I'm going to focus on. It's a brain-machine interface that we saw that there is an ape that's been tested on this technology, and also the pioneers, a disabled person that's been using this technology that was put in their brain with a chip. And my question here is why disabled individuals are the first to experiment with innovative human enhancement technology. As a pioneers, as Elon Musk called them, they are the next living experiments after animals. And I argue that this is not coincidence, but there is actually a very symbolic gain that they are profiting from the exploitation of disability and disabled people. So the disabled pioneers provide the public with an acceptable justification for medical intervention. Due to stigma and due to ableism, we know that disabled people are considered to be in a situation that is problematic, that require fixing, require a cure, and our cultural imagination lean to that approach that accept any technology that can help the disabled become more independent, become more useful, as this video were using that term. Since we are already programmed to understand disability as a problem that requires a solution, the cure narrative symbolically legitimize enhancement and obscure ethical concerns about controversial technology. So that is my main argument, and I want to go back a bit to the significant concept that I'm using. So stigma, as Erving Goffman explained to us, is a symbolic act, a label that's been put on others that society consider to be unworthy of being included. And in this quote I will read that he explained how a person that is being stigmatized is reduced in our mind from a whole and usual person to a tainted, discounted one. We believe the person with stigma is not quite human. And this question mark about our humanity when we have a disability is also a very significant base to understand the concept of ableism. I will first use the concept of ideology of ability that Siebers, the one that Yvonne already mentioned in the context of masquerade. So he offered the concept of ideology of ability and referred to it as such. Ability is the ideological baseline by which humanness is determined. The lesser the ability, the lesser the human being. And I think that stigma, I conceptualize stigma as a line, a borderline that remove some of us from this category of humanness and put us outside of it. But ableism, I suggest to look at it a bit different and to see it as a horizontal line, a measurement that we are all being judged by it. And the normal, the concept of the normal is the one that we are being measured by. And to understand better the concept of ableism, I also want to use Campbell definition that she's also saying there are two elements that are significant to ableism. The one is the concept of the normative, and the second is the enforcement of a divide between a perfected or developed humanity and the aberrant, unthinkable, underdeveloped, and therefore not really human. So ableism is also a way to think about how we need to be performed as a specific way and have specific capabilities and abilities to be counted as a human being. This framework is also based on the ideology that can be explained as evolution, is a מדעי, research theory that we can imagine through this image that we are coming from an ape and we were developed into a better and more sophisticated human being until the end of it, that we become a super human that are white, strong, and intelligent. Yes, this is the normal. But this approach also coined within it the idea of progress. We don't want to stop here. We still, as a society, an ableist society, and also, of course, the racist one, we want to become better and more developed by technology. And this ideology is understood as transhumanism. I will soon come back to it, but I want to first focus about the idea of disability and the normal. So we have a line here. The ableism is considered to be this error, a horizontal error, that disabled people are taking the position of underdeveloped, having a problem. Yes, they are in a not good position, and the normal is considered to be the main focus of this ableist spectrum. And when we are thinking about disability as something that is outside of humanity, we want to fix it. And the cure become the ultimate solution in a society that believe that technology and medication can help us fix the problem. And from Queer, we also can understand the position of passing. Passing as normal, as Yvonne already talked about. So as you can see, oh, it's very quick. As you can see, passing is imitating the same maneuver of cure, but without changing the actual biological essence of our existence. It's only pretending to be a normal individual that succeed to perform as other expected human being that considered to be much worthy because they are able-bodied, able-minded. But also we have the less attractive maneuver of overcoming that disabled people can use as a performative maneuver and still considered to be useful, considered to be more independent, more capable, even when they have their own disability with them. So it's what Yvonne called the super creep passing. I want to add the enhancement to this framework. Enhancement is adding technological tools or solutions made by neuromedical or other solutions that upgrades our capabilities and make us superior to the normal figure. This enhancement maneuver is actually very significantly developed from a transhumanist ableism. Transhumanist ableism consider all of humanity to be disabled, not sufficient enough because we are dying, we can become sick and ill, we are fragile with our human normal position. So transhumanism wants us to consider to become more and more advanced through enhancement technology. And we can see that this concept of the disabled person that can enhance themselves and become superior to the normal is only the first step in this movement of transhumanism. The normal figure also supposed, as you can see here in the slide, are supposed to do the same by using enhancement technology and becoming much stronger, much more capable with this enhancement technology. And we can see that also in Elon Musk's work on telepathy is a larger ideology, is not helping curing the disabled, but actually creating a better humanity, much more advanced humanity using this technology. And is also consider making AI as part of our brain. Yes, if we have this telepathy technology put in our brain, we are adding a digital layer to our biological brain. This is his point of view, that we are enhancing our cognitive abilities and can fight a super intelligent machine that we are creating. So we are in this point of view, we are on a race of who is more superior and which technology is going to make humankind or the machine defeat the other living creatures. So hopefully it was clear enough. I hope I succeeded explaining my argument, how disability plays a significant role in legitimizing this enhancement technology that is very controversial, but when we add in disability to this framework, it's make much more easier to the public to accept this technology and see it as a significant ultra cure for disability. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nili. Thank you. Very interesting things that are coming here. And we are opening up to discussion that includes both of the talks, so we can ask questions regarding both of the talks. I'm trying to focus, but all I see on my screen is a lot of clapping hands with this new Zoom, and they're floating all over the screen. But thank you. We have two comments that are inside the chat box, and I'm wondering, Imke and Efrat, if you want to say them out loud, or you want me to read them, or if you want to ask something in line with these comments that are here.
You can read them.
Okay. So Imke was saying, interestingly, while a neoliberal approach, this also links to early modern ideas about deserving poor and the undeserving poor.
Yeah, that was thank you. That was the comment on neoliberal blame, which I completely agree with, but I think it's also important to emphasize how this actually is a sort of really old kind of tradition that emerged with early capitalism, if you will. The idea that you can really kind of separate the poor into the deserving and the undeserving. And disability has always been linked with this, because the idea was that usually the disabled would be seen as the deserving poor, but then at the same time, the idea that the disability might not be real and that it's made up in order for the person to access help that they don't have a moral right to is very old as well. And this is also something which is even nowadays in a kind of quite common in policy, where people have to perform their disability in order to access help. So these ideas are still very much with us.
Can I react? I think this was a comment to my presentation. Yeah, thank you very much. I completely agree. This was like a bit brushed over. Of course, this idea is older. I think it's really re-emerging, and it's such a like a crucial issue of disability rights or disability justice, like of our days. And I don't know about Israel, but in many countries there's like, I think it intensifies, like, the need to prove worthy of disability support. I've heard like somebody talk about the UK and how there's like activists who train each other in how to behave in front of the assessors, so you get your rights. And that's yeah, I think it has become more and more tense. And in Germany, we have just a very big assault, let's say, on like the social state, on human rights in general. And I think disabled people are one of the groups who are not so much in public focus, but who are really also affected by this.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you. Efrat was also making a comment earlier, wondering about mental health disability and whether passing is more central in this case. I think both of you talked about this issue, so either one of you that would like to comment on this.
Yeah, I think that passing as normal is considered to be a more associated with mental disability or not extremely apparent disabilities. Can also be other disabilities that we cannot read on the body. But the fact is that people with different impairments, with different disabilities, can use different maneuvers of performance. It's not something that is open to a specific group and not for the other. Also, I will say that enhancement, the example that I've been using is of a disabled person that his disability is very physical. He cannot move his hands and legs, but and that was the profile that this technology created in Neuralink. They were looking for this figure, but in the end, the mind is much more important to the transhumanist ableism. the approach to the body is as a fragile part of our humanity that can be injured, that can become ill, that can die, and they prefer as a movement to enhance our mind and not our body. So the focus is much more about cognitive and mental abilities, and seeing the body as a part that creates disability in so many ways. So yeah, so just to react to these hierarchies between disability, and we consider to have mental disability as something that is much more severe in our society, and it translates also in the ableist transhumanist side, because this is the point that they want to invest on, how to create a super mind and not only super body.
Thank you, Nili. Ella.
Yeah, I only one comment, but first of all, Yvonne, thank you, and thank you, Nili. I see the era of AI like a new field in the battle of disability. And it's a very hard battle we have to do, because it's like going to the past, to the men and the normal, that's the way we want everybody. And now we have to see how we manage with the AI and disabilities, when we have a lot of kind of disabilities. And I want you don't forget that it's only also it's an issue of gender. Okay, we see in the AI men, we don't see so much women, and in disabilities we are talking about gender also. So I hope we will succeed in this battle, and it will be a hard work. I see it like this. I am optimistic, but we need to see the future in the AI. That's impossible not to be there, but we need to be how you say it, to be ready to fight a new fight. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ella. Do you want Nili or Ivan to comment on this?
I always be happy to have more thoughts about it. So if they want, I'm here. Nili, how are you?
Hi, Ella. Good to see you. It's been a long while.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is also referencing to the rhetoric that Elon Musk used, that we are on a fight against this new technology of AI. We are in a race, and if humanity will not upgrade itself, we will lose. So I'm not sure that the battle is a rhetoric I want to adapt in that sense, but I'm also not adapting this framework that see AI or technology at large as the solution. As I said earlier, I'm a disbeliever of the optimistic narrative of technology. I think that technology having a lot of bad sides in it, and it can be used against marginal people.
That's of course, but that's the way the world are going, and the stigma will be also there, and we have to see it. We have to recognize that where are we going, so we will succeed and not go outwards. That's all. Thank you.
Thank
Maybe
you.
I can add one thing. I'm not so sure if it's like an answer to your, or like a direct, but like something that also occupied my thought with Neely. I follow your wording and your framing resonates with me. Just wanted to point out with the enhancement that like, I mean, we know from like prosthetics that it's not like pain-free. It does create new problems. I feel like the appeal to be like a pioneer, like you put it, is very understandable in like an ableist society. But I think we know from previously like that people might look like better humans, but also like the technology creates side problems. And living with technology is not quite the same as the people who invented that for like inspirational causes might have thought of it. I think it seems a bit disconnected now to what we are talking, but I also wanted to mention that maybe we just take more comments. Sorry, my flu brain.
Anat.
Sorry, yeah, I was muted. I will also. So first of all, I want to thank the two of you for really fascinating talks, and I think they really resonated with one another and sort of explored the identities that are open to us as disabled people in an age of AI, and the dangers of actually using the technology either. I think Yvonne, well, you also talked about disability as a use case, so exploiting this notion of helping the poor disabled people in order to benefit actually other people. But I think also we need to recognize the harms that are already being done by the technology in the name of this future success. The harms to the earth, the harms to people who work, just a couple of weeks ago, 200 people were killed in a mine in Congo that excavating for the rare earth minerals that are used to power this industry. So I think in that sense, it's not only sort of exploiting disabled people in order to gain something for a different population, it's also creating disability. And also I think that this distinction between, so the technology creates barriers, yes, but also I think we need to look at the ways the technology shapes and limits the ways we can interact both with one another, with the world around us, and also the economic production. So we're being, if previously you would exploit people as workers and earn because people were working in the factories, etc., etc. Now people are also exploited as data points, and all of our ways of interacting with one, or not all of them, because we still have a few ways that are not online, but these are getting fewer and fewer. So
For
the ways
now.
of
For now.
Yeah, exactly. The ways of interacting with one another are all uploaded. The ways for us to produce, to purchase things, yeah. So we are much less walking around the streets seeing the goods, but it's all in these streets that are in the shops that are online in Amazon. So we each see different things. The ways we interact is on Facebook and on pages. So all our lives are online, and the people who own this infrastructure and who make the algorithms by using the data that we feed into the machine, then very much determine the ways that we can be in the world and what we become. So I think we need to expand this notion of barriers as something that's sort of external to the self, yeah, and look at the ways that the shift, so moving more and more of what it means to live online changes the ways we can become as humans. So that's kind of 3 points that I wanted to make. And really, again, thank you for these thought-provoking lectures.
Thank you, Anat. Thank you, Anat. And Neely, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I, the way I understand what you said, Anat, is also by creating boundaries to our identities. Like if we communicate in a specific manner and it's being listed as our identity, how it's going to confine us to this identity and not allow us to masquerade or to pass or to change our behavior and our appearance and our identities, because we are all already known as a different kind of person, a different identity is being attached to us. So it's an interesting way of thinking how this media and technology that collect the information about us also can create a confinement to our performances and our self-definition. Yeah, and also of course the idea of transhumanism is a very neoliberal concept, because the more empowered people that have the money to buy the new technology, they are the ones that are going to be upgraded, and this illusion of technology as a solution for the marginal people is actually it's not on the benefit of people that are being in the margin, including disabled people. The technology is economical driven, right? So there is a big question mark if people with disability and other marginal groups need to accept and be part of these industries or reject them.
Maybe one more comment
Mary,
from my side. Thank you, Anat. I couldn't agree more with what you said. I think we can also frame it, if you're talking about the harms done and disability being created, even the way AI shapes our human interactions. I think, it's been found to make us sick as well. Like we've talked of mental health, loneliness is an issue, it's maybe not serves our needs so well the way things are right now. I couldn't agree more. So thank you for your comment.
and Marianne.
I think Imke was first, so I think maybe Imke first and then me.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I think the
In some
connection
cases,
is not working.
can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Oh, okay. No, the thing is, I agree with what my previous speaker said, but what I think is also what is crucial in my view is actually we need participatory projects. We need involve the people who are concerned, like going in with in terms of disability rights, going back to the roots, to nothing about us without us. And we actually did a with UCAP, which is the European Council of Autistic People, which is an umbrella organization of autistic advocacy organizations. We actually did a survey with autistic people their thoughts on AI and the potentials and also dangers of AI, called IRA, Artificial Intelligence and the Rights of Autistic People. I will put a link into the chat in a second. And what is actually important, what autistic people stress, is that you need community involvement and you need disabled experts and specialists and control in order for AI to be used in emancipatory rather than kind of
We're losing you again, Imke.
ways. And that enter both the entities. So I think you need to center human rights to say about that.
Okay. I think it's my turn to say thank you to all of you. Saying thank you to both of the speakers, Yvonne and Neely, and to all who haven't been involved in the discussion already. I agree with your doubts and suspicion and worry about the situation we live in now. And to strengthen humanity or humanity groups to combine the rights of disabled people with the human rights of all is very important, I think, because technology, as helpful it may be, always can be linked to oppression or surveillance. I think it's surveillance.
Surveillance.
Yes, surveillance. Yeah, thank you. Exactly. And so it's the question where we live, whether we are disabled people in a war region or whether we are disabled people in civil societies. As Neely pointed out quite clearly, thank you to that again, disabled people are regarded as not equal or not perfect enough. And so this is the measure all of us can be measured with, whether we get chronic illnesses or whether we are not improving or being perfect enough. My question to both of you would be, what can be more resources to oppose this ableist structure? So in the world we live in now, and we see all the right-wing, right extremist interest groups, interested person in charge in countries and with a technological founders as Elon Musk and others. Where are our resources? What to do? I know it's a big question, but maybe you have a clue, and we learn from you and will collaborate together in this perspective. Thanks a lot again.
Neely, you want to go first? Do you have the solution?
This
all
big
the world's
question.
problems?
Maybe I will connect it to the. It's a model that I called it the performative model, and the three maneuvers that I presented, and also Yvonne talked about two of them, is the how passing and overcoming and enhancement are all going by the same logic of ableism. It's like trying to go to the right side of the error, right? It's trying to progress, become more able, become less disabled, because it's a very positive, negative error, right? There is a side that is you are going to the right side, and there is the bad side. But there are two maneuvers. One of them is the masquerade that Yvonne talked about. And also there is the affirmative model that I consider to be at the other end. The masquerade is going on the opposite side of the error, is becoming more disabled than you are, than you need as or can perform to the public. And also the affirmative model is accepting yourself as disabled. So it's changing the meaning of disability. So both of those performances are considered to be much more political and much more resistant to ableism and going against stigma, the disability stigma. So I'm not sure still how to think about it in the context of technology and AI and this infrastructure that are being created in our era. But I yeah, I would like to think how this technology is being used in a more radical frameworks of pride or accepting disability as and vulnerability as part of our life and not trying to fix it, and also playing this with disability to its more extreme, so like reducing our abilities and performing as more disabled. Um, yeah, I'm thinking there is a potential there, but I don't have a very clear solution yet, if ever.
Yeah, I also
Maybe
don't.
Yvonne found the solution, so for now.
I obviously don't have a good solution to your question, Marianne. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So, I mean, I think, and now unfortunately Ella left. I think one big part of it is thinking of the how we are together in this. Like these problems concern disabled people. Women are also like different minorities, and if you think about it, like I don't know, AI, how it is designed right now, is very fitting only for a few. I want to also bring in discussions we have here about teaching. I mean, obviously, we're very busy talking about how students use AI in their papers and what do we do about it. And one thing that came up is that actually it's not like leveling out class differences, but rather widening it, because to like cheat smart in like on a paper, you need to know how science works. And there are few people who bluntly use AI like in a very stupid way, and then they're discovered. And this is like people who would also not who don't have access to the same kind of resources. And then there are others with a different background, and they might, cheat, and we don't even know about it. So there's that. And I think that just reminding ourselves that like we are a bigger group who are not benefiting right now, and like pushing governments to, I mean, how is this, some of those things, how are they even legal, like the data mining that we are experiencing, and like how that bias can go unchallenged. Those are things that need like a political large-scale solution in my point of view, and I think it's worth fighting for all together, that we get better AI that better suits like our human needs.
Maybe I will add, in the last couple of years, I'm more and more thinking about the role of religion in our society, and if it's creating another alternative to our understanding of disability. And in the context of progress and the more progressive movements and ideologies, I think religion does offer a very different point of view. Maybe at least some of the religions. I'm not sure if we can bound them all together, but I think a more Masorti, traditional way of life can reject technology and become more suspicious about the role of technology in our communities. And maybe there is significant ethical questions that raising also from a religion point of view about this advance in enhancement technology and AI, that fear this human urge to progress and become super abled. And maybe there is a potential there also because religion is a much more larger infrastructure than the performance we talked about that usually work as a very personal performance or small communities, quite small communities performances. So I'm wondering how we can use a much bigger infrastructures to resist technology or to criticize technology and create a bigger movement.
Ifat, I was wondering if you wanted to say your comment.
בעברית?
Whatever you prefer.
כן,
כן,
את
יהיה לי
יכולה.
קצת קשה כרגע באנגלית. לא, פשוט רציתי, זה חצי אנקדוטה, חצי זה, שפשוט, כמו שמדברים כרגע על העסקה המתהווה כביכול בין איראן לארצות הברית, ואומרים למה הם לא מגיעים לעסקה, כי אלה מדברים פרסית ואלה מדברים אנגלית, כן, אז הם לא, אבל זה בעצם מבטא את זה שהם מגיעים מעולמות אחרים, מעולמות רוח, אמונה, עולם חברתי תרבותי אחר, כן? ואז שאלתי את זה לכאן בשביל לומר, אין מה לעשות, הטכנולוגיה מגיעה מאיזשהו מקום שהוא של אינטרס כלכלי, אינטרסים אחרים, לא יודעת, אפשר לחשוב מאיזה מקומות זה מגיע בדיוק, כן? אבל לא בטוח שזה בדיוק מגיע גם ממקום דומה מבחינת כן, עניין של זכויות של אנשים, מאוד התחברתי למה שאמרת נילי, בהקשר של השימוש הכביכול ציני, כאילו, או ספק ציני, בטכנולוגיה, בהקשר של אילון מאסק וכולי. הם פשוט מגיעים מעולמות אחרים, וצריך לבדוק מה האינטרס האמיתי, כאילו, של השימוש ב-AI בהקשר הזה של זכויות אנשים עם מוגבלות. זהו. אם מישהו רוצה לתרגם מה שאמרתי.
So Ifat was saying that she's borrowing from the things that are happening today with the deal with the US and Iran, and it might not be happening because they speak different languages. And we might take this into our field as well, and to see with the use of AI versus disability rights that there might be different interests, different forces that are happening here, and each one is taken into a different solution. If AI is based maybe on economic forces, it might bring it into one perspective, whereas disability rights comes from a different perspective. So I hope I'm doing a good enough job, Ifat, of saying your thoughts. I think we have time, maybe for one or two more. We'll see how it goes, but I see Talia wants to speak and we have not heard her yet. So.
Thank you. I loved Yvonne and Evie. I loved both your papers separately, and I loved them together. And I agree with so much of your criticism and your analysis, but I think that in addition to the criticism and the suspicion and about the politics of these technologies, which is extremely well founded and that I share, I feel that sometimes the criticism is too whole hog, and we are resisting too much, where we might also consider participating, experimenting with technologies. The politics of technologies, they could be feminist, they could be caring, they could be nonviolent, but it requires us also to experiment with them, to define the agenda of these technologies, to participate in thinking through their ethics, whose problems they are solving, what is the purpose of them. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Talia. Just a
Can I
couple
come?
more. Yes.
Maybe I will connect Talia and Ifat's comments. I think that a lot of us disabled people in the more individual layer can want to be cured and accept this ableist framework. And it's not necessarily a very different conversation or a very different ideologies. I think it's different layers that we look in on our society and technology that make the different. So I'm wondering how much of we as disabled people can offer an alternative when we do accept some of the assumption about disability, that disability is hard and it's difficult to be disabled, and we feel in oppression and we feel pain or limitations, and it's really difficult to create a different discourse. And like the narrative prosthesis that disability is being used to create legitimacy for technology that will not necessarily help disabled people in the end, but will change society in a way that maybe create more of a divide between the more advanced and the more disabled people. So I'm not sure how much we as individual or maybe even a movement can create a very significant alternative today. I think that we are still in the journey of trying to create different rhetoric, different language about disability, and technology is going very fast in creating our environment, our society, our infrastructures, and I'm like feeling that we're going to lose if we continue with the battle that also Ella talked about, and I'm trying to resist this concept, but I feel that we don't have the same sophisticated alternatives to be based on when we're trying to create a more feminist or disabled grip technologies. Yeah, sorry for the optimism.
Thank you, Neely. I feel like there is a lot still to talk about, but we've come to the end of our time. I hope you can join us on the meeting that we will have on March 5th, and maybe it will be, we can pick up on some of the topics or go on a different tangent, but you can feel free to be there. And those of you that we will see in the seminar, of course, we'd be happy to see you there. Thank you, Neely, for the wonderful talk. Thank you, Ivan, for the wonderful talk. Thank you, everyone, for being here and taking part. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
hosting
Shirley.
us, for the wonderful discussion. Thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you, Yvonne.
Yes, thank you to all of you.
Neely.
My technique is a little wobbly this morning.
Thank you, Marianne. Bye.
Bye bye.
You.